You need to watch this before you buy a CFMoto IBEX 450 or even the 800. Hey, how's it going? Welcome to my channel. As I stated in the beginning, you should not purchase a CFMoto IBEX 450 or even the 800 without taking into consideration a very important factor. Now, what factor is that? I'm going to get into that in just a minute, but in doing that, I want you to think about the current bike that you ride, or maybe a bike you're dreaming about, and all of the modifications you want to make to that bike. Say like beefier skid plate, new crash bars, hand guards, maybe a new windscreen, a custom seat, foot pegs, a luggage rack, all of those things. So think about all those things and what you would want to do with your bike. And that gets me to the point of the one factor that you really need to consider before buying the CFMoto IBEX 450 or 800, and that is aftermarket support. So I started doing some research on the IBEX 800 because that's what we have out right now. There's model years 22, 23, and 24. Enough time to start developing some aftermarket support. And what I found, well, it wasn't necessarily surprising. It's kind of what I expected, but it will be problematic. And that is, as of right now, the IBEX 800 has very little aftermarket support. The big manufacturers of all of the extra modifications that we put onto the bike, like a skid plate, crash bars, custom seats, things like that, well, that market doesn't exist for the IBEX 800. I checked Outback Motor Tech. There's no listing for the IBEX 800 CFMoto. I checked Black Dog Cycle Works, also nothing there. I checked Touratech USA, nothing there. I went to Revzilla and looked at Revzilla. They don't have any custom exact fit parts. I went to Rocky Mountain ATV and MC, also the same. They have no exact fit parts. So what does that mean? If you are serious about buying one of these motorcycles, especially the 450 as it comes out, the thing you need to consider is whether or not you're going to be able to do the modifications to that bike that you want. Like the skid plate, like the crash bars. And if you're okay with it in its stock form and you don't want to do those things, then you might be okay with that. But if you're like me and you like doing the modifications, you like wrenching on your bike, well, that lack of aftermarket support is not going to get that bike turned into the machine that I want it to be. The factory crash bars, the factory skid plate, as we all know, typically those aren't sufficient, and especially the skid plate. And what are we going to do if we can't get an aftermarket skid plate? What I did find for the IBEX 800 is that CFMoto makes their own beefier skid plate. It's an aftermarket add-on. So if these are bikes that you're interested in, especially the 450, your only aftermarket options might be going to CFMoto and buying their factory options, because I'm not seeing that there's going to be a robust aftermarket for these bikes. So before you buy them, you really need to consider that. And I know some of you are probably thinking, well, what about AliExpress? That usually has a ton of aftermarket parts that, yeah, maybe they're not made the best, but there is parts there that you can add. And I even checked AliExpress. I found 1 or 2 windscreens, and that was about it for the IBEX 800. So an area that is known to have lots of parts for lots of bikes, they don't even have aftermarket support for the CFMoto motorcycles. My last thoughts on this is I know I am projecting out based on my research on the IBEX 800 on what I expect the aftermarket support will be for the IBEX 450. I could be completely wrong. There might be a lot of interest in this bike. They may sell a lot of units, and companies like Black Dog Cycle Works, like Outback Motor Tech, Touratech, they may pick up and start making parts for this bike, but I think it's going to take a while. So really the point of this video is if you're interested in especially the IBEX 450, make sure you understand that you're not going to be able to go aftermarket to get all of the normal accessories that we all put on our bikes. Now, there's a few things we'll be able to do. You can get hand guards, you can get universal ones. That might be the limit of it. If you're wanting to do luggage, you're either going to have like a luggage rack, you're either going to have to do the CFMoto factory one or go rackless, which those things can be worked out. But the protection package is where I really think those of us that ride off-road are going to be disappointed in what we're able to get, at least initially. It might take a year, it might take 2 years, it might take 3 years before we start seeing any parts. So the point of this video is if you are interested in that bike, make sure you go into that purchase with your eyes wide open, knowing that you're not going to be able to do the modifications on that bike that you've done on others. And if you're like me that likes to wrench on your bike, this might not be the bike for that. But if you just want to jump on it the way it is, you don't do modifications, you're perfectly happy with the way bikes roll off the factory floor, then you might be perfectly happy with it. But just understand the aftermarket support may not be there. So let me know what your thoughts on this are. This bike is the IBEX 450 is something that I am strongly considering. But in looking at this, the purchase price is good, but am I going to be able to do what I want with it? Ride the type of riding I want to do and know that it's protected? Well, that's why I decided to make this video. So if you have your own thoughts, if you've given some consideration, if you're interested in this bike, leave that in the comments below. And let me know if aftermarket parts and support is something that you consider in a bike purchase, because I know for me, it is becoming that. I want to know that I have options on what I can do. And that was one of the reasons I bought the Yamaha Tenere 700, was the volume of aftermarket support and being able to get that bike to be exactly what I want it to be. So anyway, if you stuck around to the end, thank you for watching. If you haven't done it yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Get out, do some riding, ride safe, and I will see you out there. 450 or